Hi, I'm V. Srinivas Rao, also known as VSR. I'm the chairman and managing director for BT and BT, so one of the lean digital enterprise solutions company. And I'm also chairman for Open Digital Innovation Working Group at IET. So today we are going to have very interesting discussion on the data fabric approach to data access and analytics. And for that, I have great industry veterans. So I'm very happy to invite them for this panel. So Saurav Sinha, Chief Information Officer, Indigo Airlines, then KV Deepu, the President, Operations and Communications and CX, that is Customer Experience, Bajaj Allianz. Then Anand Subramaniam, Executive Vice President and Head IT, Kotak Mutual Fund. Amit Verma, Executive Director, Country Technology Head, DBS Bank. Neeraj Lal, Group Senior Vice President, Medicover Hospital. Vishal Nagpal, Head of Data Science and Analytics, G5. Ashish Pandey, Digital and Tech Head, India Subcontinent. Is also CAO, CDTO, GSK Consumer Healthcare India. Then Siddesh Naik, Country Leader, Data, AI, Automation, Technology Sales, IBM, India and South Asia. Thank you so much, my dear friends and panelists, for joining this important and exciting panel discussion. I think new terms are coming in the data in the last 5 years. So there is another very important concept emerged today is data fabric. We have very experienced speakers from different industries representing healthcare, insurance, entertainment, and also the other consulting firms, so on and so forth. Banks are also there, and airlines, of course. Thank you so much for joining this interesting discussion. So we will discuss, debate on this data fabric, what it is required, what it is, and all. So let me start some context setting here. Data is there for many decades. I think maybe many centuries, but of course, it is changing its form, the way it is generated, used. So, especially when we are in the fourth industrial revolution, you have so many sources of data like social media, machines, telephone data, I mean, in the sense structured, unstructured, semi-structured data, and also the velocity, the volume, and variety, and veracity. So the data is also playing a very vital role. Okay, it is a ocean. Okay, you call it as a lake or ocean or whatever, but a data rich inside poor called drip is not really good. So I think we must have a good data as a raw material, and at the same time, how we get insight, hindsight, and foresight to answer what happened, why it happened, what will happen, if it happens, what you should do as a recommendation. If data is not giving answers to these questions in the form of descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, maybe in future autonomous analytics, it's of no use. So with that context setting, I request to start with probably Saurav, Deepu and Vishal. I request you three probably give some understanding and your thought on today. There is a hyper-connected world. What does it mean? People to people getting connected today through our social media or communication networks are there. I mean, it is becoming like instantaneous real-time connection. But it's not only people to things are getting connected. People are talking to car, or people are talking to washing machine through mobile phone or network. And things to things are getting connected. A car is talking to a car. So this is the world what we are living. I call it as a hyper-connected world. And these are all connected in real time. So that means the data is also generated and all these things are getting connected. With this context of exponential growth, what are the burning issues the organizations are facing today to unlock the true value of the data generated from this hyper-connectivism? So can I start with Saurav?
Yeah. Thank you, VSR, and thanks for this opportunity to the organizers. I'm Saurav Sinha, CIO for Indigo Airlines. So let me set the context in view of the airlines. As a matter of fact, as we were talking about connected entities and connected people and so on, actually our IT strategy evolves around a connected airline. And what do we connect? There are 4 components primarily of a connected airline, or for that matter, any airline, which is the customer, the enterprise, the aircraft, and the airports. So these are the four cornerstones, you can say, which all needs to be connected, intra-connected and interconnected as well. Now, when I say connection, it's not only about network connection, as we all know. What I'm talking about, connectivity in terms of the technology and primarily the data. The data flow from one end of the process, which could be originating from a customer, but actually coming into the enterprise, originating from the customer, but coming into the airport, coming from the aircraft and getting into the enterprise, and so on and so forth. So that's the complexity, as you can imagine, in terms of the flow of the data, because the processes will also have to be aligned. And when I say process, I mean business processes will also have to be aligned across all these 4 areas as well. So not only for an intra-connectivity, but as I said, for interconnectivity, the processes have to be streamlined. They have to be dealt in one go, on a single fabric, on a single map, and different components of these processes generate varied data. Varied data, when I say in different systems on different technology platforms, some could be in our own data centers, some could be in the public cloud, some could be in the solution providers cloud, and so on and so forth. But these data will have to converge to provide a meaningful process, meaningful information, and also help the participants in each of this process, which are typically could be our customers, could be our employees, to execute.
Okay.
So this is the kind of the canvas which I am talking about.
Okay. So did you see any challenges in the last couple of years, the data challenges in this your enterprise to aircraft to the consumers or guests or whatever? So what are the 3 data challenges you faced, sir?
So the obvious challenges are the data is in different forms. Okay, it comes in different forms. It exists in different forms. It exists at different locations on different platforms, different technology platforms, and there are different ways of interpreting that data and making that data available as an information. So primarily the complexity is around, as I said, on different platforms because of the diversity of the platform, because of the diversity of the technology, because of the diversity of the data elements, so the way they are generated, the way they are consumed, the way they are extracted, and also in terms of the players who would actually leverage them.
Okay, I think excellent. I think you highlighted a very simpler way, different platforms, different locations, different structured. It's like scattered, and pulling that together and get the insight is the biggest challenge. The plumbing, and then the visualization.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. So Deepu, what do you think the top 3 challenges in general you see in this hyper-connected world, people to people, people to things, things to things?
Yeah, I think it's a good context, VSR, and I think, Saurav has already covered, some of the challenges. So I'll try and speak about, some other, challenges, that we are facing. I think one is, the fact that in our kind of business, right, especially when we speak about people and things, we have multiple sources. So I think getting data from multiple sources, and of course, we have multiple formats. There is text, there is voice, there's video, there is, there are hard copies, there are soft copies. So I think getting our, our hands around this entire set of data, I think that clearly, is one challenge. The other is, in terms of ingesting unstructured data, I think that's still, work in progress. So I think, that's clearly, one area to focus on. Thirdly, to the point that you made about, the 3 V's, which we typically hear about data, right? How do we set up that infrastructure, right? I think, that's, one more angle. And I think underlying all of these, not to forget, because even one incident, can take you back, is security. So I think I would say, these are 4 dimensions, which we need to focus on.
Super, very simple, to the point.
Thank you.
Security, very important, and 3 V's, the velocity, variety, and volume. Of course, veracity, whatever. So all those things needs to be taken care of. Very good. Thank you so much. So let us come to, okay, now we understand different platforms, different locations, structured, unstructured, semi-structured, velocity, volume and all. So let me put a question to Anant. Anant, what do you think? Who are the data consumers? And when we do, I consider as a data as a business. Let us take like that, for example. Okay, who are all the consumers for this data? The whole ecosystem. Who are all the consumers? And how this thing can be handled so that the data can be handled to provide the better business performance.
Yeah, thanks, Tushar. Hi everyone. So very interesting question actually. I come from the mutual fund background, right? So here I am not even supposed to know who my customer is. It is the distributor or is it the customer that I'm actually talking to? So we have a completely different approach towards trying to get data. The sensitivity of all these things, because end of the day, while I'm supposed to make use of the data that I get, I have the information of who's doing what, but can I actually reach out to him and do certain things? Is my distributor going to be antagonized by me doing that? So it's a very, very double-edged sword that we kind of walk, because I'm not supposed to nudge the customer in any way, because the distributor is there out there, to guide him. And because these are all financial products, these are all specialized products. Today, you have all these Zerodhas and Grows and so many algorithms that have come in which tell the customer, what you need to do, how you need to invest. But, there is still that element, subjective element, which is there. It's a financial product end of the day. So it's a very complex activity that we carry out at our end, whether I should till about many years ago, there were no direct investments even allowed by the regulator, right? And today we're talking about direct investments. So then I ideally can approach the customer and tell him, hey, you're going to get better returns. But then
that is another consumer got added. Yeah.
So yeah. So, and there are so many channel partners. So who's the actual consumer of this entire information? Today you have the R&D who's working on, who's also separately doing interactions with the customer at the other end. He's doing customer service. I am doing customer service. The distributor is doing customer service. So there are multiple consumers for a single, area of data, which is kind of coming in. It's pretty complex. And it's, again, as I told you, it's a very wait and watch thing that we do. We don't really overstep where we want to. Quite difficult, honestly, to even look to say that, hey, this is my customer or not.
So I think it is important for all of us, I think, to have that consumer's landscape, the data consumer's landscape visually, and see that, my God, these many consumers are there, like we do stakeholders analysis, right? Absolutely. So now we need to have data consumers matrix and see red, green, amber. That will help us to really look at the consumer's angle. Yeah. So that's good. So Neeraj, any comments on this aspect? Who are all your consumers? You can tell your experience. Who are all consuming? Your patients, your doctors, your research associates? Who are all they? Employees?
Yeah. Okay. We run a chain of hospitals. So we have so much of data, clinical data, business data, vaccination data, huge. Like we vaccinated 1 million population in the last few months. So data generated, we have so many software platforms. If you see HIMS, which have admission, discharge, transfer modules, we have a prescription, OPD trackers, supply chain, entire supply chain, this medicine and consumables, employee data, right from the doctors till the management, staff, nurses, and all the business data, and a biomedical constitute with crores of equipments, the machine learning, the ventilators and all. But for monitoring all this, for business flow or a clinical or a quality, organization have created their own dashboard, because data is coming from different application and all. And, we struggle, what to read, how to read. So every organization I have seen, they have created their own dashboard, which do not talk to each other. Okay. So if audit is happening, so I'm talking to finance, so finance will talk to 10 more people to give the data. So much of time consuming is there. Like a patient, my doctor is doing a study on diabetes. Today, say, for example, is a World Diabetes Day. So if I want to extract a data, which age group, which region, Kerala or Karnataka or somewhere in north part of India, we cannot able to access that. And all medical records are huge. If you see, average file size of a medical record is it's 50 to 60 case sheets.
Mhm.
And we have the data. The hospital
Okay.
has, I think I can claim maximum number of data, but we can't use it because of the data integration challenges.
Okay.
So these are the
Yes.
issues which currently most of the hospitals are facing.
Right. So along with the issues you highlighted very well, okay, that is integrated. That's where we are coming to the solution part. So what are the challenges you mentioned? So the consumer's perspective, you said, I think there is a finance, there is a doctors, there is a patients. So everybody wants to consume that data in their own context. So, but if it is not properly managed, then they may not get the required insight. Just getting data is not useful. That's where I think it's not only just identifying the consumers, it also needs to be helpful to provide the right insight and information to those consumers. At that point, you very well, I think, highlighted. So, Vishal, I think G5 is more towards too much of a consumer intensive industry, right? Okay, I'm talking about our business consumers. So what about the data consumers in our media entertainment industry? Can you give a few thoughts and how that you think your business performance could be more viewers, better advertisements and great revenue, maybe. I'm not an expert in our space. So how it will help you when there are data consumers, when they consume well, your business performance goes up.
Yeah. So I think when we look at from a data consumer's perspective, we basically talk about, we see two major entities that are kind of important for us. So one is like the internal data consumers, and the two is the external data consumers. So in an internal data consumers, we are moving towards a direction where data team or the data science team is not the only custodian of the data, right? So what we are saying is that, okay, we need to have more democratization of data, be it marketing, be it finance, be it anyone, right? So they should have real-time access to data because at times, historically, what has been that there's been too much reliance on the central team on some of the tasks which they ideally should not be involved in. Plus, it's also for the vision where we are saying that everything has to be data-backed decisioning, right? For every why or how of a problem, we need to do it via data. Now, if we go through that vision, the marketing teams, finance teams, they also would require more data to be accessible to them and on a real-time basis. So there is a huge need for us to have sort of a data solution which can kind of help them provide that data, which they can easily access.
Okay.
The second kind of a consumer that we have is from a publisher, from our advertisers' perspective, right? Now there is a huge need from advertisers. They said, "How am I consume? What are your consumers? Where are they? What are they watching? And what are they not just watching on ZEE5? What are they also doing outside of ZEE5? Whether they are doing adventure sports, whether they are into, do they own any pets, right? Tomorrow I go to an P&G, they are kind of have like a product for say moms. So they're saying that, can I get like target these moms who are watching this kind of a content? So when we are into this kind of a world, we are not just looking at data, which is just within ZEE5, but also outside of ZEE5. Right. For both our internal data consumers and an outside data consumers like our advertisers.
Understand. Okay. I think it's an ecosystem of ecosystems. So in the whole ecosystem, the consumer landscape, and then what is the flow, I think that needs to be understood, the complexities. I think we understand now the challenges, and also we understand the consumers and all. Now my next question is, for all these things needs to be managed, we have to engineer the data, right? So I think engineering is nothing but creation, something. So in this engineering, there is a life cycle. And we see that maybe a guy like me, last 25 years, I'm in the industry, but of course I'm this side, like TCS, Infi, Tech Mahindra type. And you all there in your own industries and all. A lot of jargon, and of course, jargon also good. Okay, so I want to request Siddesh to demystify what is this, database, data warehouse, data hub, master data management, data mart, data lake. I mean, don't you think, I'm sure if not only IBM, there are so many vendors and industry analysts introduce so many new words. Now, metaverse is the one everybody is going behind. Okay, so Siddesh, how do you demystify? If every 1 week or every 3 months some new word is coming, so what is that? I think, can you just demystify and say what are all these things?
Thank you, Sir. Good evening, the esteemed panelists. Let me start with your first question, VSR, which is what is data engineering? Now, data engineering is about a life cycle of the data where you're architecting platforms for the entire life cycle of the AI ladder. And that's right from collection of that data to organizing that data. When I say organizing that data, it entails all the governance aspects, the security aspects of data as well, the policies that you would enforce. The then next piece that comes in is on analyzing that data. Now, how do I transform that data and how do I analyze that data in a manner where I can extract the whole AI models, the model ops piece that starts flowing in are the elements that come in. And the last element is how do I actually run this at scale and infuse this within my organization. So the 4 steps of the AI ladder is what the data engineering lifecycle is all about. And while there are multiple jargons, it's basically how do I cover every element of this? How do I collect that data? How do I discover that data? How do I put all the governance elements around it? How do I analyze that data? And finally, how do I infuse that data to drive AI at scale within my organization? So that's in the data engineering life cycle. Now, yes, you rightly said there are way too many jargons in the industry. And let me I'm not going to get into too much of details of these, but let me give you a very brief perspective of what are the top few. You spoke about it, which is the data warehousing piece, which has been the so what clients do here is they attempt to centralize and consolidate large bodies of data from disparate multiple sources into one source. Typically, to do this, they do an ETL, which is extraction, transformation, and loading. Convert it into a organizational structure, a hierarchy that then can be analyzed in a much simpler manner. Of course, data warehousing entails you creating moving data and creating a copy where you're running all of these elements. So there is a significant effort and cost that goes with it. The other aspects that you spoke about is a data mart. Data mart is nothing but a smaller form of data warehouse where it is not so much enterprise wide, but within the business unit. But a very similar approach in a limited form. A data lake is a very simple way of just streaming in data, putting in data in its raw form or practically not transformed or semi-transformed, put it there, make it like a repository, and then pick the right things and work on the elements that you need. So these are the few of the elements that have been prevalent in the industry. There is no one thing that is right or wrong. There is no one size that fits.
Right.
Depending on the exact requirement that the environment has, you pick the right solution.
Right.
The last one, which is the most important one, and the one that's been evolving over the last 1.5 years, is the data fabric element.
I'll come to that, Siddesh.
Okay.
I'll come to that. So is there any data ocean? I think anybody calling any, because lake is over now. Is there any ocean now?
Yeah, so there are a few jargons that float around, but the fundamental elements that I told you, I believe are the ones that remain. There is a data hub that people talk about as well, which is nothing but a processing hub where you cleanse the data, you transform the data, you remove the duplicates and all of that. So that's like a processing
hub. That MDM, yeah.
Right.
So
a whole lot of jargons that go in there.
Yeah, okay. So I think if you listen from all our panelists, so we understand there is a lot of challenges, different structures, different locations, and volume, and also there are different consumers. And all these things, if not properly managed, there might be an issue. Okay, you talk about data lake, data hubs, and data warehouses and all. Still, there are a lot of challenges are there. Unfortunately, all problems are not solved. So what do you think now the new trends emerging out of all these things? I heard something called new thing, I think data fabric. Okay, now we are getting into probably textile also, not only just to the water, data lake and ocean. So data fabric, what is this data fabric and why? Again, one more thing me or my friends needs to explore.
These are like what Neeraj pointed out, like what Saurabh pointed out, and the other esteemed panelists as well, Deepu spoke about it, as well as Anand. The challenge we're going through is diverse data sources, types, structures, environments, platforms, and this multi-dimensional predicament is further complicated. We are talking about a multi-cloud environment. You have some things on-premise, you have some things on hosted service providers, you have things AWS, Azure, multiple public clouds. So the whole complexity is become very, very high. And you briefly touched upon the ability to consume and harvest data. We just harnessing not more than 20% of data typically for most organizations. And the operations data and the unstructured data, like Deepu pointed out, a lot of it remains siloed, a lot of it remains hidden, leading to dark data. Now one of the approaches that has emerged over the last one and a half years is an approach which is of a data fabric. Now the data fabric approach what is a data fabric? A data fabric is like a virtual connective tissue which between all the data endpoints. So to technologies like automation, integration, federated governance, as well as activation of metadata, you are actually enabling dynamic and intelligent data orchestration across diverse landscape, and that landscape could be on-premise, public cloud, S3, Azure, any of that, and creating a network of instantly available information to power a business. And that is what data fabric is all about. It is something which is agnostic to deployment platforms. It facilitates the use of data as an enterprise asset. You really have data that cuts across multiple elements. And now the aspect that, or the question that comes in is does this become the be all end all? Answer is maybe no. It may or may not need combinations of various technologies, and we can talk more about it as we discuss this with the panelists as well. So yeah, that's what the latest new trend is all about, BSR.
Okay, great. So Amit, do you have any comments on the whole conversation we are having about the challenges and consumers, and then the various solutions which have been there for many decades, and now there is a new solution come up, this data fabric and all. So what is your view on that?
Sure. So, thanks for having me on the panel. It's great being here, everybody. And listening to all the great thoughts, including those of Siddesh, just there, right? Now, the way I look at this, right? If we take where we stand today from an enterprise or a business entity looking to manage data, right, and utilize it to drive their business based on a data-driven operating model, they have various challenges. Right? First and foremost, gone are the days where you could say that your data could reside in a data warehouse, right, which would have the processed data ready for consumption, or in a state where people could utilize it for driving business intelligence. Right. Also, the type of the data, whether it is structured, unstructured, is very different or very diverse than what it used to be before. Right. The volume of the data, right, is also a constraint. Plus, the other factor in all of this, right, is the need to drive real-time business decisioning.
Right.
Right. And I can give you an example there, right? It was just in the case of banking, for example, right? Previously, it was very well and good for somebody to get a banking transaction done over a pace of a day, if not multiple days, right? But now we are looking at real-time instantaneous transactions.
Right.
If you take this specific scenario, it automatically needs a scenario or a solution which is going to support real-time fraud detection and validation of transactions. But to enable that, right, there is not just one system, there's multiple systems. You have got your entire ML KYC data sets. And mind you, this is not just internal, right? This is even external sources, globally distributed. So the challenge is, how do you take this distributed vast data set, which is evolving and changing, right, on a real-time basis, and then utilize it for business decisioning on a real-time basis as well?
Right.
And that is where I think, the data fabric model, which focuses on real-time updates, right, autonomous updates, autonomous metadata management,
Right.
autonomous services, right, is certainly of great importance and value.
Okay.
So those would be some perspectives that I can certainly share.
Right. Thank you, Amit. Now I request Ashish. You have been representing, I think, healthcare, GSK healthcare. You are working. You have, I'm sure, so many challenges in sensitivity, privacy, and all those. So, do you see any need for data fabric? Yes, we can come and tell new solution and all. So, like that's where I requested Siddesh to demystify what is data fabric. Okay, so he's telling you don't care about your locations, your platforms, your technologies. Okay, deployment models. Don't worry, there is a fabric. It will make you everything happy. Consolidation and providing it. So, do you see there is a need for such type of data fabric solutions today, where there are so many in the past and present?
I think so. This is a very interesting question, first of all, and Vishal very cleverly put the point across that need of internal data and external data, right? That we are having different kinds of customer and consumers. The evaluation is happening, and we are speaking about plethora of data. It's in TBs where we want to do our analysis and those kind of things. And right now, the challenge is that if I want to carry out an analysis, I need to have that data in my own space, be it Azure, be it AWS, be it my own servers or anything. I cannot run concurrent analysis on different kinds of platforms or things.
Right.
So those are the definite challenges. And we have seen a phenomenal jump with the internet speed as well. So I will directly collaborate with that as the speed has increased, as the gigabytes over wire or wirelessly have been increased, it has become easier to transmit. We are going to see much more real-time engagement with data. Right now, we are able to run a bit of GBs on remote connections. I won't be surprised if we are doing it on terabytes in future. And that is where data fabric and data engineering concepts comes into picture. So not just having the data at a place, but having data at multiple places, doing the right kind of analysis in real time, and the third being that actually acting on it. If I want to even send something which is very heavily loaded, how can I do it in an easy manner? So yes, it has a use, and we keep speaking about open source, we keep speaking about multilinguality of platforms. That is where data fabric will be very, very crucial for all of us. So yes, I see it as a coming thing. I definitely see that.
Sure. Thank you so much. So Anant, you want to share some thoughts on this, the necessity of data fabric and how really it solves what are the problems we discussed and how it adds value to different category of the consumers, data consumers.
Yeah, so as the other panelists have pointed out, this is going to be a need of the hour because the data is disparate, coming from so many different places. And how do I manage it with the efficiency that I want to, especially if I want to make a quick financial decision of any kind of investments? Okay, can this help me achieve that? Suppose I want to kind of track if someone's intent to redeem, and if I can make the investor, hold on to that redemption through a preemptive methodology, which this data fabric can help me, get into, it will be wonderful. So apart from, of course, there is governance that is always going to be there. There is data, there is going to be governance. I mean, that's a hygiene today. I mean, we talk about cyber security and all these aspects. I mean, these are all hygiene aspects. You don't even discuss that. That's all done. But then how do I make use of technology to ensure that in real time when a person is about to redeem. I give him some inputs that, hey, why do you really want to redeem? Do you realize this has been your investment? You may probably be able to do better if you hold on for the next 2 days, 10 days, 3 days, or whatever it is. If I'm able to get that metadata using all the other information that I may have about the consumer, whether it's on the social media or on any other big data platforms that I may be having, it's definitely going to
Okay.
help me achieve those
Thank
objectives.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Deepu, so what do you think? So, how this data fabric really can solve the problems and challenges? What is your view on that?
No, I said since a lot has already been spoken by by the various eminent panelists. It becomes a bit difficult to add value to what they have stated. I think essentially to how Anand just clarified, I think in a multi-cloud environment, the fact that we can standardize data management practices, that I clearly see as one of the big benefits. And also the fact that we can get instantaneous visibility and insights. To me, I think these two stand out.
Okay. Right. Great, thank you. Saurav, so you represent airlines, and so do you see the necessity of
building on what Deepu just said? I mean, I'm not repeating what he said, but over and above that, from our perspective, we have to understand a few things here. 70% or 80% of our workforce actually work in the field. They are distributed. We had done a quick survey, and we have seen that 60 to 70% of the time that they are at work, these are like routine decisions most of the time.
Right.
But there are times when they have to take a decision on the spot, and time being a very, very critical factor, right? Decision is a critical factor. One has to take into consideration, apart from time, also the safety aspects and all that stuff. Now, there is a huge dependency of these people, and these are not small in numbers, on their respective supervisors, managers, or whoever it is, to tell them what to do, to take a decision. I'm not saying, by bringing in data, by bringing in information, by bringing in AI, you would be able to eliminate the dependency on their respective managers or supervisors. Okay, but one would definitely, and I'll give you an example just to understand it better. But one could always reduce it, minimize it to a good extent. For example, the crew, they have information about a passenger, and they just want to know, what exactly they will have to do. Yes, they have their own trainings, they have their templates, they have their checklists. But then if there are a couple of peculiar cases and combination of not only peculiar, I would say different combinations, she fails to understand what to communicate and how to communicate. And that's the time when you would need a kind of AI ML kind of information generated by AI ML engines, kind of information which would tell her what exactly and what are the options that she has with her. I'm talking from that example. Now, this involves both close to real-time data as well as historical data, drawn from different systems. It could be a customer system, it could be an operation system, it could be anything. And that's where I believe if you have an architectural framework, which actually then, that's not the right word, but I would just say it normalizes the data availability and the data processing, be it by an AI ML engine, be it could be for analytics, actually helps. That's where the data in my
excellent. Thank you, Saurav. I think Neeraj, so when we started the conversation, I think you also raised a point. The biggest challenge today is different systems, different things and all.
Data fabric can change the entire ecosystem in healthcare, because I think we are passing through a bad phase of our time because of this pandemic. I think easily transform health data into actionable. See, so much of data is there, but meaningful information from a raw, discrete and desperate data is like prescriptions and all. Taking action in the real time. See, people for example, we got hospital in tier 2, tier 3 cities as well as in metros. So if the doctors, every super specialty doctor is not available, like we got Medicover Cancer Institute in Nellore in Andhra Pradesh and Hyderabad. So their doctors can exchange the data of a TrueBeam and they can take a real-time decision. Now, these things is taking time. So it reduce the cost of treatment, predict outbreak of epidemics, and patient prediction from improved staffing, because healthcare is working 24/7. And I think it prevent unnecessary ER visit also,
Okay.
Like say, for example, our ICU, you must be knowing everybody want a bed. I was sitting in one of the CO club in Toto. Now it is very important to have a hospital number in our phone book because everybody is struggling for a bed, and ICU bed, you're not just getting it. So if these kind of data doctors can get on their cell phone and they can able to take a call on that, because ICU care is a multidisciplinary care. You cannot ask every doctor to come in the ICU and see the patient, maybe a cardiologist, a neurosurgeon, GI and all. So if data transfer from these machines, our monitors, ventilators, ECMO machine to a doctor in the right time, I think a diagnosis can be taken care of and we can save the patient many time and reduce fraud and enhance security because data is flowing everywhere. I think WhatsApp is the biggest thing. They take an X-ray and a CT scan and send to their friends, relatives, and doctors. So I think data fabric, it is an integrated layer, what I understand, that passes all data connection. I think healthcare is a big boon. So I think
Excellent.
I learned so many things. I think it is a way forward of data management in healthcare.
I think you touched really the very important point, especially today because of the pandemic. The ICU has become a very necessity when really it is in spike. When all the integrated data is there and the system also tells that, okay, this guy can be released probably from the ICU. It's okay. I think he can. Okay, I think that's really, it should enable. I don't say that itself is the input, the doctors and other people to take a right decision and manage the ICUs. As you said, the cost reduction is also very important.
For example, a patient is stable in the night, but doctor cannot discharge the patient. He has to come in the morning to see. So we use this kind of technology. We can empty the bed and we can take the next patient.
Absolutely.
Because we have got a limited number of ICU beds, critical case specialists.
Yeah, this is great. I think it's a real time. Yeah. Don't wait till the morning, right? So because the life is very precious. Yes, thank you. Okay, Ashish, the data is there now. So if you look at on-premise, private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, edge, whatnot, and your transactional systems within whatever you have been doing for many years. But how you make sure that I don't want to move this data to data warehouse and create again data marts and then building blocks like that. It's too much of cost for me. So is there any way there is a mantra in data fabric where without moving this data from disparate different sources, but still you get what you want in terms of the insight? That's a headache today. I'm sure you agree with me.
It's a headache now, and it has been headache from ages. And that is why I believe that EDI, ANSI, everything, they got their head together that let's accept that there is going to be a certain norm, a certain ways where different organizations are exchanging data between themselves, right? Yeah. And similarly, what I see here in data fabric approach as well, one of the major aspect when I want to talk to different systems, I want to integrate with them, is about if in your system you are having something written as A, maybe I'm writing it as 110. And that is where the ETL and all those people come into picture and they want to just transcode it. They want to put some random things assigned it. And that is why you need things in one place. So what I see that once that kind of democratization is there, I really see that there is going to be clever APIs. Now I'm calling them clever because they will be intelligent enough to say that, dude, your A is my 1111. Right away, you just accept it and go ahead with it. And it is happening already. It has started happening. Sure. So these are the ways where I definitely see that your trillions of data will be actually coming together and giving you a sense that what is actually happening. So,
right.
And one more thing, I see huge underlying usage of blockchain as well in this entire scenario, because when we are speaking about security angle, then a validation piece comes into picture.
Right.
When these two things, they come together, it is going to be enormous.
Right.
It is going to be really enormous. And then we are speaking real time, right data to right people.
Right.
And that is happening.
Great. I think that's good. I think Deepu also mentioned security was a very important challenge when blockchain, of course, blockchain is not for everything. Probably the sensitive data we can use it. Amit, so what do you think so are you facing any challenges with the movement of the data, consolidating it, then getting insight, or you want the data where it is as it is, and I have a fabric now on the top of that which can do all the headache and give me insight? So do you see any value in the data fabric solutions?
I mean, that's really a great question, right? And in fact, something which is very close in terms of being a sore nerve, right, for me as a leader looking to manage data for my organization, right? So to add perspective, right? Let's just take an example, right? So the example I was giving, right, that assume that a company has acquired, right, another entity, a business entity, right, and as part of which they are looking to integrate the data ecosystem of this acquired entity with the parent entity.
Right.
In this case, in a traditional way, right, the parent entity would have spent a lot of time, effort, investment in building data lake, for example, right? And if you're trying to do this integration in this data lake model that we're talking about, you're potentially talking about taking and dumping the data that you already have in this newly acquired entity into this new data lake, and then building something on top of it. Now, we all know, right, that yes, you might look to do that, but the challenges with that will be, A, how do you manage the metadata, right? B, how do you manage the integration, right? C, how do you manage the data, the data lexicon, right? The access to the data. So there's a plethora of elements to it, right? In a traditional data lake, this is going to be really like taking and integrating something which you don't even know necessarily, where it went into your data lake at the end of the day, right? So in the data fabric concept, what really will happen in this case, right, that you will have this overarching autonomic metadata management. You will have a strong layer of data services, right, built on top of it. You will also have a data management layer and a data management system built on top of it as part of this fabric, right? Which then hugely simplifies the need and the mannerism in which you will integrate this new business entity and the data with it, right? So again, the point being that you don't need to transfer the data, right? Because guess what? What you can do is build a very strong and smart data visualization and run your queries of the data visualization.
Right. Thanks.
So it's great, data fabric architecture, right, is certainly a boon, is what I would say from that perspective, especially if we take the current context, right, where we are talking about, distributed data, in hybrid clouds, right, in private clouds, right, in public clouds. You're talking about traditional data warehouses, you're talking about data lakes, the example I gave earlier, right? In this model, the data fabric model and architecture is certainly a godsend, is what I can say, because it simplifies the entire management. More importantly, it eliminates the need to actually move the data physically as well.
Okay, thanks, Amit. I think so. I think it might be music for the people who wants to, organizations who wants to do the merger and acquisitions. Hey guys, data fabric might reduce a lot of your headaches. So I think, okay, we have to integrate so many things, processes, people, technologies, and data integration seems to be solved with this data fabric. And I think you talk about the data management and the services, I think, plays a very vital role, which are part and parcel of the data fabric to avoid the movement of data and then use these services to orchestrate whatever you want. I think that's great. Siddesh, when we talk about data engineering life cycle, so any life cycle, you have so many activities needs to be done, but activities without policies, without governance, I think of no use, right? So data governance has its own role. So for many decades, we have been working on all, but it is day by day getting complex in terms of the security or privacy, and then whatever different attacks, if they are happening and all. So the governance policies and so many new data protection acts are coming in, right? GDPR, or in India also, it's a pending data protection act. I think it will come out. So how do you make sure data fabric reduce my overhead? A lot of people think these are all overheads for me. Okay, this policy is governance, whatever. So do you think the adherence, the compliance, enhance the compliance, reduce the overhead and cost, how data fabric play a role?
VSR, you brought in a very, very important point. So while you're talking about data fabric, connecting disparate data sources, what is important that you embed an automated governance wherein you're able to enforce policies within the entire data platform and using active metadata. A data fabric ensures automatic policy enforcement for across the board. Vishal spoke about democratization of data, the data ops piece that is coming in, and we working with a large change giant who does this. They have moved. It is about how can my employees use that data in a lot more efficient manner. But I need the right kind of governance. I need the right kind of policies that are enforced. So this is a paint company that has actually got down the data to a depot level. Each depot runs their own schemes, own promotions, and they've put a complete intelligent workflow as well for not just running the promotions and schemes, but the exception process, the fine-tuning of those promotions as they actually see the whole thing forming through the season, the Diwali season, or any of the other seasonal aspects that they drive. So it's a very important element of the whole data fabric. In fact, it goes VSR, it goes beyond that. It is about becoming an automated element across multiple layers. Like you said, these are elements which have become a headache. One is the governance aspects. The other is there are aspects like auto AI that's come in terms of your ability to automate data preparation, the model ops elements of it that go in. There is auto SQL that has come in. Now, when I query, I don't need to worry about which data source am I querying to. It is about disparate data source and my ability to query a generic query that finds its right source and gets you the auto catalog ability to how data can be accessed in a hybrid multi-cloud environment. How do I catalog it? How do I provide the right access and manage that piece? And of course, the last element, which is the most important element, which is the automacy. How do I enforce universal policies, be it whether I sit on AWS S3 or whether I'm on-premise or I'm on a Google Cloud? How do I enforce all of it? It's a very, very important element in the whole.
I think that's wonderful. I think enforcing that unified policies, irrespective of where it is deployed, which locations or wherever, that's wonderful. So I think the compliance of these data protection acts and all. So I think the governance and the policies and enforcement will become simpler, automated, and it reduces the breaches also. I think in that way, this becomes a very important element for the governance and policies unification, implementation, and compliance. Yeah. I think, thank you.
Yeah. And if I may, right, just I think this is great point and great conversation there, right, between you and then Sidesh's points as well. If I may just give another perspective, right, if you look at GDPR and such regulations, right, the key driver there is the constraints on the portability of data. Right, so data needs to be there right where it is produced, right, in its raw format and so on and so forth. And that is exactly what Data Fabric promotes and supports.
Right.
It enables you to keep the data where it is, right? And then through intelligent views and visualizations, right? Do all that is needed from a governance perspective, from a processes perspective, from an operational perspective, right? Ensuring that you're still compliant with these governance norms. So I think Data Fabric certainly can play a major role in enabling regulation like GDPR and governance that comes there as well.
I think wonderful. That's I think a very important point, because that is the most, I think, challenging part. I mean, if you depend on human beings and very low automation, so that may not happen. So thank you so much, Amit. So now I want to discuss with Vishal. I think you have been into this data science space and all. I'm sure if you develop any ML algorithms, whether chatbots or the robots, any other intelligent things and all, the data preparation is very important. If I want to train my algorithms, data sets, the quality of data, the cleansing of that and all. So do you see any possibility with this data fabric? It will ensure that the right data sets are joining or adding to the algorithms for training and all.
What Siddesh has mentioned about the concept around data fabric, obviously it sounds very exciting. It sounds very promising and solve for a lot of problems. And it, to an extension of what I was saying earlier, and not just within ZEE5, I could talk about like when I was working with American Express, it was a similar problem, right? Now, the challenge that we have is we need to take a real-time solution. There's a customer who's gone to the website, they may be looking for a personal loan or a credit card. How you can kind of they've not completed that transaction, but how you can kind of provide them a real-time suggestion that, hey, why don't you complete this transaction? Now, for all of those decisions, there are we've always built like an AI ML algorithm to show like the best offer to a customer, and that offer could be based on something that the customer has done on say maybe in last 10 minutes. But at the same time, while I'm kind of looking at some of the information that the customer has done, say on my platform or within my technology, but at the same time, that decisioning also has to be done based on some of the external parameters on what they have done outside. Now, with this sort of a data fabric solution, which kind of can integrate both of these together, taking care of all of the governance, taking care of all of the harmonization of data, taking care where the data is all consistent, right, and helping us feed it into a real-time AI ML solution, right, so that we can kind of reach out to a customer and say, hey, why don't you take this offer? This will be most lucrative for you. This is the off, and we giving you say a 10% off or maybe a waive off on say on annual fees. So yes, there is a huge need for it. It serves a lot of problem in an AI ML situation. But I'll still say that at times, as one of the apprehension that I may have for any of these sort of solutions, maybe new, is when I talk to my teams, at times when we take like one step forward or two steps forward, there might be like one step backwards as well. Right. To the point that I have a new data, I have a new system. How do I ensure that whatever that I was working and was having and working previously is still intact? Nothing is breaking. Yes. So that's one. The second thing is that what I would love to see in this format of a data fabric is how even the data technology can be more adaptive. In the case of a ZEE5, we looking at how we can kind of integrate something like a satellite data with my OTT data, which is on my app. There should be a seamless integration between what someone is watching on a Zee TV on a satellite TV, and what they're watching on a ZEE5 app. Now we have a concept of a metaverse. Now that will kind of bring in a lot of data, right? But can those data solutions can be adaptive, that every 2 years or 3 years, I'm not breaking down the entire system and saying that, hey, bring in my new concept, bring in this new data solution, nothing is breaking. So you're getting my point, right? So at times while we are trying to say that we're taking 2 steps forward or 3 steps forward, hopefully these solutions should also be not taking us 1 step back as well, in a way, from an internal processing standpoint. Sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Vishal. That's great, I think. Answer. So, Saurav, what do you think? So most of the times we look at for any solutions, the resource cost is higher, whether capital expenditure or human resources cost to drive this data operations and all. So with this data fabric, do you expect, of course, the other budget items might go up. I'm not saying that you reduce the budget, but can you see, other than this capital expenditure, I think that Siddesh can probably answer later. So do you expect any reduction in my cost of data operations? Because I'm optimizing my human interventions. I'm using data services, I'm using the automatic data management layer is there, governance and everything. So what is your thought on that?
Perhaps yes, it will reduce the data operation part of it. But in terms of capital expenditure, in terms of, it will have a much more overwhelming effect on the entire data environment, data ecosystem within an enterprise, I agree. But one has to really see the capital expenses. One has to really see the readiness of the teams to put that in place and manage that. Data operation cost, probably, yes, perhaps it will reduce. But there is so there are 3 things, as I say, it is process, people, and technology. All of us know that. So all things should get aligned. While this give me a much more integrated ecosystem, training, is something which will have to come to manage this kind of a framework.
Correct. Okay. I think like Vishal also mentioned, the life cycle cost, it's not only just one-time capital, the total cost of operations also needs to be minimized. Even you add something new later, it's not like it escalated. And then I think that's where I think probably we need to look at how Data Fabric can help in that. So thank you. Neeraj, do you have any comments on this? So what do you see today after understanding all this? So do you see Data Fabric also? There might be some, I heard, I think one company, IBM, IBM integrated with some open source tools also with their Data Fabric. So that means they're extending their Data Fabric capabilities. So with all those things, do you see any additional value and cost reduction, minus capital expenditure, minus initial preparatory expenditure, change management, you keep it aside. That also we'll consider in business case, but I'm talking about runtime, the operational cost.
No, you are right. Actually, it can really change the face of healthcare. See, as I told you earlier, most of the subspecialists are available only in big cities. So we have a tough time treating the patient there in tier 2, tier 3 cities. So if we have a good Data Fabric management system where these doctors can transfer the live data, say, for example, Karnool or Nellore to Hyderabad. So our doctors, specialist doctors who are sitting here, they can take a right call at the right time, and we can take healthcare to the villages. And I think real healthcare is in tier 2, tier 3 cities. I was seeing a data, we're saying 37% of the patients which is coming to Hyderabad hospitals are not from Hyderabad. They're coming from small cities. So we can able to reduce the cost because healthcare is out of their pocket. So if we can take it there, I think government is also not doing anything on that way. They have to travel a lot for high-end surgeries. And you have to do, these days, healthcare is just minimal access surgery. So I think Data Fabric can change the face of healthcare. And I think the people who are sitting and who know this thing, because healthcare, if you see, IT is not taken in a big way. We did a world biggest vaccination drive from Medicover on a single day in a single location. 40,000 people came to take vaccine. We have created like airlines a boarding pass. They are coming. There's an app. They're scanning that app. They're going inside, taking a jab and going out. So I think this can change the face of healthcare.
Oh, great. Siddesh, now let us come to the important point here. Data Fabric and blockchain. There is a Ocean protocol. It has come out. Now data marketplaces are coming because my data, I don't want the GAFAM to take it and get the billions of dollars. Today, that's what's happening. GAFAM is like Google, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, right? GAFAM. So that's where the Ocean protocol is coming to safeguard my own. So I will maintain my data in the data marketplace. If anybody wants to access that, there should be a blockchain based to this one. Now, please tell me, there are so many things we are introducing. Okay, AIOps, complete infrastructure operational automation, right? And then we are talking about MLOps, the complete, the analytics perspective, the AI, ML, the life cycle is automated, right? And model ops. Okay, what is the relationship between this Data Fabric and these new methods or philosophies?
Thank you, VSR. I think very, very important question because net of it, what really happens is all of these elements is what you face on a day-to-day basis. What the evolution is coming to is an integrated platform that lets you do all elements of the AI ladder. And when I say all elements of the AI ladder, we spoke about these when we spoke about the data engineering lifecycle piece, right? From the collect piece to organize piece to analyze piece to the infuse piece. All steps of your AI ladder are encompassed in a platform, a cloud native platform that could run on-premise, that could run in a public cloud. It's something that encompasses every element of this. The correct collect piece is the ETL piece that goes in. The organized piece is your data governance piece and the policy enforcement that goes in. The analyze piece is all about your model ops. How do I manage so many of these AI models? What are the open source frameworks that I need to run all of this? How do I do the feature engineering part of it? How do I monitor once deployed it? How do I monitor the performance and keep improving on it? And the last
Right.
element, how do I infuse this into the so what is required is a platform, and that's what we've started working with clients on. We've introduced a platform called Cloud Pak for Data, and which is a platform that encompasses all of these elements. Data Fabric is a building block of that element. It actually encompasses every element of the AI ladder that you talk about.
Okay, so great. Thank you so much. So Anant, so do you see we slowly get into autonomous data engineering in the next 15 years?
Yeah, very much.
We don't want any human beings. Maybe it's like somebody said in a smart factory, we used to have 100 employees. Now there is only one employee and one dog. Dog is for companionship. So because he has to pass the time. So do you expect all these headaches? What is this? So some software automate everything, governance, policies, security, approvals, decisions. Only it provides visual insight and then foresight. I mean, that's where the journey towards that, right? So, yeah,
it's very much possible. I think we are also doing so many things today which are in those directions. You know, we may think that these are all big things that we're talking about, but honestly, you know, even simple things like, you know, doing a sentiment analysis of an investor, you know, whether has we been happy or unhappy with the investment that is done. You know, these are all basic things that we actually are doing of late. You know, we read mails, and you know, it's not that somebody at the call center is actually reading a mail and trying to analyze whether he's happy or not. So the idea is to obviously try and make decisions as much autonomous as possible, but at the same time, as I told you, you know, a financial investment will not be just based on algorithms. Okay, there is a fund manager who also has some role to play. So while a lot of things are possible, but then there is the subjective element of a human being which will obviously be there to, you know, ensure that the process is not going haywire anywhere.
But Anand, so whatever you say, as I am sure next 10 years, a lot of financial advisors, legal advisors at lower level, who basically does very simple things.
Yeah, absolutely.
All these guys have to face challenges with chatbots or some other.
That's what I'm saying. So the algorithms are already built in. Like today, you have the Zerodhas and the Grows of the world. You know, so many ads coming in. You know, but how much comfortable are you? You know, with that decision which the system is going to give you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ashish, do you have any comments on so the data fabric role in simplifying our day-to-day work and adding extraordinary value to businesses? Any, I think, thoughts on that so that we can conclude the session?
It will be really interesting to see how these are getting deployed first, and what kind of skill set is available in the market, how easy that is to acquire, and what kind of cost it is accruing. And that is when we can actually make that statement that the life is actually getting simpler.
Okay.
It's not about the technology, it's about how easily people can adopt that, how easily people can use that. So that will be something which I will be looking forward to, and I will try to understand as well. Otherwise, we can provide a lot of mumbo jumbo, which is not really
right. Yeah. I think great. That's a great point. So maybe Siddesh, a few takeaways. Probably you are from the great company. Okay, maybe 100+ years. So is there any matrix available, data fabric versus and the model ops and ML ops and AI ops and all? That's one. Second, maybe like Ashish mentioned, is there any ROI calculator in terms of if suppose I put some numbers, it says that the business case, it really simplifies the CAO's job here. So they will try to see that whether my business case justifies or not. The third point, most importantly, Ashish raised the capabilities and ease of use. How do you make sure the workforce is available? Plenty of workforce is available to make this data fabric a reality. So I think any thoughts we can have? You can try that. So that is very much required for us. In fact, from system integrators, representative, and the enterprise representatives. Any new thing comes, these are all the issues we have to look at. What is the value add? So what is the ROI? All these questions. Oh, capabilities are not there. Oh, this is a big change. We can't absorb this. So even I go and talk about digitalization, some people get scared. I'm surprised. Okay. So thank you so much. This is a bit, I think, detailed discussion, but this is very important topic. That's why we invited a lot of senior executives here. So different perspectives came out. So finally, data fabric, I think there is a time to explore, and probably the CAOs have to start the proof of concepts and try to create a business case and go to the board. So thank you so much.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.